Seahawks lose 42-29, and they fall to 3-1 on the season. Oh boy, a lot of scoring plays, but we'll go over them. First quarter, not so much. David Montgomery, a 1 yard rush, makes it 7-0 at the end of one. Second quarter, Jahmyr Gibbs runs in from 3 yards out to make it 14-0. Kenneth Walker adds a 1 yard touchdown, or gets the Seahawks on the board, I guess I should say, with a 1 yard touchdown to make it 14-7. But Jahmyr Gibbs, a 1 yard rush again to make it 21-7 at the half. Third quarter, AJ Barner, congrats, buddy. First touchdown. Pass from Geno Smith to make it 14-21. Jared Goff, a 7 yard pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown to make it 28-14. Kenneth Walker adds another 1 yard rushing touchdown. And then the 2 point conversion is considered no good. We'll talk about that. 28-20. Jameson Williams, boy, he's fast. A 70 yard connection with Goff. 35-20 at the end of three. Kenneth Walker, a 21 yard rush to make it 27-35. Amon-Ra St. Brown, an 8 yard touchdown pass from Jared Goff, 27-42. And then Jared Goff is sacked, and actually a call that goes to Seahawks way, a safety, 42-29. But that's the end of the scoring. Ooh, this was an interesting game. Interesting is probably underselling it. And let's start with the positive. First of all, you're still 3-1. You're still 3-1. And I'm not saying a win here wouldn't have been fantastic, because of course it would have been. It's hard to get too upset about this loss. It's hard to get upset when you fall against what, in my humble estimation, is the best team in the NFC, to the Detroit Lions, on the road. There were a lot of positives that came with it. Now, there's some negatives, and we'll talk about that in the second half. But I think there were some positives. And let's just start right at the beginning. Geno Smith's line, I think, doesn't tell you how well he played today. 38 of 56 for 395 yards. Don't get me wrong. That's a really good line. I thought he played a lot better than that. A lot better than that. Now, he made a couple of throws that could have been turnovers for sure. But that's going to happen when you throw 56 times. When you put the ball in the air as often as they did, there's going to be a few throws that could be considered turnover worthy, and there were. There were. In particular, one play to DK Metcalf definitely should have been intercepted, and he did throw the one pick, just trying to make a play at the end to JSN, but man, I thought Geno Smith played like a upper echelon quarterback today. I thought Geno Smith played one of his best games as a Seahawk. And for the most part, the overwhelming majority of this first quarter of the season, and I know it's no longer a quarter of the season because they added the 17th game, but let's call it the quarter of the season. I think Geno Smith has been fantastic in everything you could have asked for from a starting quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. And again, I had my doubts. Not my doubts that Geno Smith, never thought he was a bottom dweller quarterback. Well, I kind of did when he first took over. I think a lot of people did. But it's pretty obvious based on how he played over the first 2 years that he is not one of the 5 worst quarterbacks in football. I think it's been pretty obvious at times that he's not one of the 5 best quarterbacks in football. He's played like a top 10 quarterback this year, and top 10 may be underselling it. I thought Kenneth Walker played an outstanding football game. And look, yes, almost all of it came in the second half. The adjustment that he was able to make bouncing around those just complete lack, and we'll definitely talk about the middle of the offensive line again. The ability for him to not get stuffed up and to get outside and use that speed was massive today. Like his 12 carries for 80 yards and 3 scores, again, it's a fantastic line, and he adds 4 catches for 36 yards too. I think that undersells what he did today. I think Kenneth Walker played like an upper echelon running back as well. And Zach Charbonnet played a nice game as well, too. 5 catches for 39 yards, just the 2 attempts. They don't have as many attempts here because they fell behind so early that the run game really became irrelevant's not the right word, because they ran for 3 touchdowns. But you know what I'm saying. Like, they could not ETR, establish that run as much as they probably would have liked. But they were able to make the most of it. And in particular, Walker, the ability to bounce outside was very, very significant today. Receivers, I think, played pretty darn well. We'll talk about JSN in just a sec, but DK had a fantastic game, and we'll talk about another negative with DK in a sec. It has nothing to do with DK, but I love how Geno spreads this football around. You know, Jackson Smith and Jigba ends up leading them in receptions and has 11 targets, but I thought DK Metcalf was the best player on the field. And I know he has the fumble, but you just see the specialness of this dude. I think he's just a special football player. But I love how much he spread the football around today, or the Seahawks did and Geno did. Like, you've got 5 catches for Charbonnet, 8 catches for JSN, 5 for Lockett, 7 for DK Metcalf, 3 for Jake Bobo, easily his best game of the year. Congratulations to AJ Barner on that touchdown. I bet that felt really good. As a former Michigan guy, I bet scoring a touchdown in your home state on Monday Night Football has got to be, I'm sure he would take it against Jacksonville just as much. But scoring your first one in your home, or where you made your home for so long, that's got to feel good. Got to feel good. I thought the receivers did a really nice job tonight. I have no complaints really about the offense, and that includes the offensive line. Look, Geno does take 3 sacks, and I don't think any of them were a case of him holding the ball too long. I'll take that. 3 sacks for 12 yards, by the way, too. So they were not deep yardage sacks. They were, right around a little bit past the line of scrimmage, obviously. But I'll take that, especially when you're facing a dude as good as Aiden Hutchinson, who, it wouldn't shock me at the end of the year if we were talking about him being the best player in football. He didn't really make an impact today. Hit the quarterback twice, made a poor diving attempt for a fumble. He was nowhere close to that thing. I get it. You're just trying to get there. But he really didn't make an impact today. And I think you have to give a lot of credit to the offensive line. Stone Forsythe, I thought, played, for the most part, a pretty darn solid game. Christian Haynes needs to be the starting right guard. It wasn't perfect, but I saw enough from Christian Haynes to say that guy's a lot better than Anthony Bradford. A lot better. And I think they'll probably keep rotating him because they want to keep the motivation going. And Ryan Grubb brought up that he needs to work on strength and power type moves, or how he handles power, is I think basically how he means that. Or, you never really know. But power is the issue and his strength. So maybe you need to keep him as a rotational guy. If you're doing that, he needs to be on the strong side of that rotation, for a baseball guy, the lefty version of that, the strong side of it. Because I just think Christian Haynes is a lot better football player based on what I've seen and what I saw from him at UConn as well. I think he's the better player. I think that he is the better player. We'll talk about the negatives, and first we'll talk about something very positive, and that's simply Seattle. Until midnight tonight, and that's Monday, use code MOLLYWOP30, MOLLYWHOP30 to take 30% off your order. If you're watching this video on Tuesday, use code MOLLYWOP15 to save 15% off your order. It's a great deal either way, and it's not just for the Seahawks, it's not just for the Mariners, it's for the Kraken, the Sounders, the Storm, the Huskies, the Cougars. You can find it all at simplyseattle.com. MOLLYWHOP30 until midnight tonight, and then afterwards, MOLLYWHOP15. Link in the description. Thank you so much, Simply Seattle. All right, the negatives. Let's start with the fact that I don't love talking about officiating. I do not think the Seahawks got any favors tonight. And I don't want to say it's the reason they lost, but it really didn't help. Really didn't help. I, watching it live, thought that Tyler Lockett did commit offensive pass interference. But after watching the replay, I thought, boy, that's pretty ticky-tack. And what really bothers me about it, the more I think about it, is that they called that and not a smorgasbord of DPIs that should have been called. In particular, the one against DK Metcalf that wasn't called in the end zone is inexcusable. It's inexcusable. And if I had one thing that I could ask the NFL to do, and they'll never do it, make DPI not just a challengeable thing, make it something that isn't decided by the refs on the field. That challenge should go to New York or wherever they have those headquarters at now. They should be the ones who make that call, because what you saw when you brought back challenging DPI was you saw a bunch of officials very furious that judgment calls were something that you could challenge and they weren't going to overturn it. Take it out of their hands. Take it out of their hands. Make that a call by the league. The league should be the ones who determine those calls. And I don't understand how that, and it's, again, it's not the reason they lost, but I'm going to point it out. I don't understand how you don't review that 2-point conversion that Metcalf made a brilliant catch on. And in my opinion, and I think a lot of people's opinions, should have counted as a catch. The officials were not good tonight. And again, not saying that's why the Seahawks lost. I am saying it didn't help, and it didn't make what was a really entertaining game better. The officials made the game worse today, and that's what you're trying to avoid. Defensively, obviously, this was a struggle. Now, do they get a pass a little bit for all the injuries that they had here? Sure. And especially the defensive line. Yeah. Obviously, that played a factor. When you're facing an offense this talented and you don't have guys like Leonard Williams, guys like Byron Murphy, guys like Boye Malfig. No, you don't have your inside middle linebacker. You missed probably 5 starters, or at least 5 guys who play an awful lot. And then you lose Julian Love as well in the middle of the game. Here's hoping he's okay, because oh boy, do the Seattle Seahawks need Julian Love. Sure, there's your excuse is probably not the right word, but there is, yeah. Having said that, it would be nice to see the guys who were on the defensive side of the ball play better, because they did not. They did not. In particular, and look, one of my all-time favorite Seahawk picks of all time was Jared Reed. He does get the sack tonight. He's got to be better on the run, against the run. Got to be a better, more impactful player, especially when you don't have Leonard Williams and you don't have Murphy playing in that game. Secondary was not good. And sure, you can point to Julian Love being out, and you can point to the fact that they just didn't generate a whole heck of a lot of pressure. They get 3 sacks. I think that overstates how much pressure they really got. One of those being the safety. And Draymond Jones has got to be better against the run too. But again, it was a case where the secondary was not helped by the fact that the Seahawks weren't able to get to Jared Goff. That doesn't mean that the secondary played well. They've got to do a better job. They're relying on that back 4 a lot. And I wasn't impressed. So there was some really bad tackling from that secondary as well. Some bad tackling from the linebackers as well. I thought Dodson played probably his worst game as a Seahawk. Leads them in tackles, but we've talked a lot about what tackles actually mean. Rayshawn Jenkins was somebody you saw chasing all night as the safety, but yeah, I was not impressed with the defense. And I'm going to give credit to Jared Goff, who played terrific. Jared Goff had more touchdown catches than incompletions tonight. The Seattle Seahawks did not give up a single incompletion today, or did not force a single incompletion. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jared Goff combined for 3 touchdown passes, 19 of 19 for 273 yards. They averaged 15.7 yards per completion. Not far behind that in terms of attempt per pass. Got to play better than that. Got to play better than that. And I don't want to blame Mike McDonald here at all, because he's not the player. I will say that while they did make a smidgen of an adjustment against the run game, pass defense was pretty bad all night. I would have liked to have seen him bring more pressure. And I'm sure some of that has to do with the fact that they just didn't trust those guys. But you got to get to him. You got to get to him. And they did not. And Goff made some great throws. The Seahawks take some blame here. The Seahawks, they're mad at me. I see the messages coming right now. They don't know who I am. And real quick offensively still, the interior of the offensive line still scares the heck out of me. I know Christian Haynes played much better than Anthony Bradford, like we talked about in the beginning. I give Connor Williams just a tiny bit of a pass because of how much he's had to come back from. You got to generate more push up front. Got to do a better job. And is some of that on Scott Huff? I suppose so. But I just don't think those three guys are all that good. They were fine in pass pro, I think, interior-wise. But you saw how much, well, credit goes to Kenneth Walker for making those bounce cuts. Had to make too many of those bounce cuts tonight. So you fall to 3-1, and now you get to take on the San Francisco Giants. The Seahawks would probably beat the San Francisco Giants. You take on the New York Football Giants at home. It's a game you should win by 2 scores. I know winning in the NFL is hard. I know winning by 2 scores is even harder. The Giants stink. This would be a horrific loss. So you have a great chance to get to 4-1 before that big Thursday night game against the San Francisco team that hasn't been terribly impressive, but obviously will be their second biggest test so far. Really appreciate you guys watching. I'd appreciate you guys hitting like. I'd appreciate you guys hitting subscribe. I'd appreciate you guys joining Mile Y Enthusiasts. I'm going to start doing, starting next week. So some of you guys know I am a bit of a prospect guy, a scouting guy. I'm going to start doing positional previews for the NFL draft. I'm excited about that, but that'll be just for Mile Y Enthusiasts. It's $4.99 per month. You get that. We'll do weekly chats. We do a whole bunch of really cool stuff. Great stuff for the Mariners. Also going to be covering the Kraken this year. Going to be covering Husky basketball. And next year I'll do Husky football on top of everything else we're doing. Really appreciate the support. A bummer loss, but you guys tell me. It's kind of hard to be too mad about it, right?